Man,
Yeah.
so yeah, what do you like about Vassar's playing?
I've spent a lot of time with that video in particular, actually, for sure. I've learned that solo, and man,
Really?
he's amazing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, he's got his own unique fiddle vocabulary, which is
Totally.
not easy to do, and not a lot of people have that.
There has got to be more than this.
Ronan Keith Hines, thank you so much for spending some time with us over here.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this ever since we set it up a couple months ago.
Absolutely.
And in that time, you've had a major career accomplishment in that you premiered on the Opry, the Grand Ole Opry.
I did.
This is last week.
Yeah, last
as of this tapings.
Wednesday.
Yeah. I'm so excited for you, and congratulations. And that must have been, it must have felt like, okay, I'm doing something right with my life and my career choices.
It was very encouraging.
Yeah,
It's so
it was
cool.
very encouraging. It was an
It was so
encouraging
cool.
step along the way.
I've played the Opry I've played it many times with other artists being in people's bands, but I have to say it's extremely different when you're the person in the circle singing the song. It's really wild.
Walk me through it. What was it like? You show up through the performer's entrance. I've seen all the photos.
Yeah.
And is it just, I don't know, I'd just be curious as what the experience was like for you. From your side.
Yeah, and they put out this little sign right next to the kind of the best parking spot of the night, and they put out this little sign that says Grand Ole Opry debut, and it has your name on it, and I kind of knew the sign was there, so I was looking for it, and I found it and got to park there, and yeah, and then
Awesome.
you walk in and they show you to your dressing room, and they've got a special dressing room for Opry debuts, so it's kind of got all these quotes from people that have done their Opry debut. There's a quote from Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was oh my God, I'm on the Opry or something. And yeah, you get to do a little sound check ahead of time before the doors open, which is nice to kind of get a feel for how it's going to sound.
And it is a house band there.
I actually
correct, or
brought
no?
a bluegrass band.
Okay.
Yeah, often, it seems like they'll let the bluegrass people,
Have their own.
band. Yeah.
They're also, because bluegrass people just, they can count on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just any band. Some guy like me bringing in my questionable band, I'd be like, I don't know about those kids. That's so exciting. And then did you? I'm sorry for not even knowing everything, but you play 3 songs, I want to say.
They gave me 2 in an interview. It's 2 or 3 depending on the slot. But I think for the first time they often do 2 and then a little. They pull you aside and you kind of chat with the announcer. So that's what I did.
Well, I'm super excited. You brought your own band. You played a couple songs. You got interviewed.
Yeah.
And just light interview.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And packed house, full audience. Were you nervous in advance?
I was
Yeah.
pretty nervous. I had a stress dream about it the night before where I was the mic was facing the wrong direction and I sang my whole song with my back to the audience for some reason.
Perfect. Yeah. I think I would feel like there'd be something wrong if you weren't a little nervous and didn't have a stress dream the night before. I also have this kind of theory about, making your way through life and life's challenges. And it goes if you're not semi-regularly getting nervous, that probably means you're not on the right path. You're or half asleep or taking something for granted. So it's a
Yeah.
great way to be alive. I think, at least to occasionally be.
Definitely. Yeah. It's good for you.
Absolutely good for you. And then you're playing Bluegrass in the Caverns.
Yeah, I'm getting to open for the Steel Drivers.
It's fantastic.
June, yeah.
What a legendary band.
Yeah.
And you know those guys by now?
Totally, yeah. And I'm good friends with their mandolin player, Brent Truitt. He produced and engineered my last record.
Awesome.
So we're buddies.
And the record is out.
It is, yeah. It came out last year, almost a year ago. It's called I Built a World. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you write 90% of the songs, 70%?
I didn't write a single song on it. I wasn't even writing songs back then.
A year ago when you were just a kid.
It was my debut vocal record. That was kind of my first step into singing, really.
So you're let's see if I can do the singing part. Now that
it sort of felt like one thing at a time. But now that I kind of did that and that, felt really, it just felt good. Now, yeah, I've been starting to try to write songs. And
Well, you have a very fine singing voice.
Oh.
And so I'm glad that you're going forward with all of that.
Okay.
And then maybe that's a nice segue to ask a little bit about your past in music and how you got started, which apparently was not singing, but playing.
Yeah, I grew up playing, and the first kind of like traditional music I like was introduced to was Irish traditional music. I had a lot of Irish family, and I just kind of randomly got into it. So I grew up playing Irish fiddle and got into bluegrass more as a teenager.
Did your folks play?
And they didn't. Apparently, I saw some girls busking on the street when I was 3 and
This
pointed at them and was
family
like,
lore.
"Yeah, that's the story." I don't even remember it, but
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Awesome. And that was in Charlottesville.
I grew up mostly in Charlottesville, but I think at that point we were still living in Vermont. So I was in Vermont when I was really young. So that was up in Burlington, Vermont.
And did you have like a Irish fiddler teacher, or how did you kind of get, the technique and a little bit of the familiarity with the tradition?
Yeah, I had several different teachers as we kind of moved around a little, and I would also go over to Ireland a lot. They would have these Irish fiddle contests that I was really into. So if you made the regionals in the States, you'd go to Ireland for the All Ireland contest, and that was a lot of fun. Just a lot of studying and nerding out.
Yeah, practicing.
Yeah.
And there's something, this is me talking from the outside, so forgive the mumble. But with regard to like fiddle contest culture versus jamming culture, my feeling is that likely in fiddle contest culture, there's kind of a predominance of like getting really good at the piece, and it has very little to do with improvisation. Is that fair to say?
Totally. Yeah. It's like being very good, and like how good can you be in this specific setting under high amounts of pressure? And I was never that good at that particular setting. There was something about the feeling of being judged that really like gave me the willies, and kind of like kind of shut me down a little. So I was never that good at it. I don't think I ever did that well. And once I kind of went to music school and kind of was around other, just like found other ways of enjoying music and like playing music and started performing more, I was like, oh, I like performing, and I don't get nervous performing as much, and unless it's the Opry and it's your debut, but otherwise, it's just like you're not being judged.
Yeah. I get that a lot. And just from my own journey through song, my experience with contests was like songwriting contests and singer-songwriting contests, really just like performing a song you wrote. And the feeling of being judged is so anathema to actual music and what we're all in it for, which is the opposite of that in some large way. And that people that have that superpower, Godspeed to you, but it doesn't, it's sort of like, it means nothing in the world of like actually being able to kind of do it. It's such a alien environment for music. I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah. It can kind of shut you down,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're just like, I won, I lost. Like,
right.
That's not
real life,
about.
and like real life isn't like a zero-sum game,
Absolutely. And so, so this question is going to this direction, which is that I've known some really talented musicians that grew up in the fiddle circuit and maybe won or didn't, whatever, they were good at that, but they were like really, practicing nerding out on a piece and making it just so, getting all the polish down and then seeing if they could deliver it. And though I'm thinking of a friend in particular, but he or she couldn't really make the leap from that practicing the same piece over and over again to just like improv and hanging out and just like in a circle and just, playing over a chord change. Is that something that you learned? And I also, just to preface it one more time, like that's not really a thing in Irish music so much either. There's more of like a adherence to the tune.
Yeah.
Everybody's in a circle playing the tune. So can you think of a time when you sort of made the leap or were curious about the improv side of music and what that was like for you?
Yeah, definitely. That kind of came in college. I went to Berkeley up in Boston, and yeah, I definitely remember like sort of a couple years where I really wanted to be able to improvise, and I couldn't do it. And it was really frustrating. I felt like everyone else around me had this like secret superpower, and I couldn't figure it out. And you know, it just kind of took like running at it over and over and trying over and over, and you know, just endless failed attempts for it to start to make sense. You know, and studying theory and getting better at knowing the notes of chords and arpeggios and all the sort of like kind of like grunt work to go into like knowing my instrument in a different way. Because in Irish music, I didn't have to know like music theory in the same way. It was all about the tunes and the groove and the timing and all the subtleties of Irish music. It's just a different skill set.
And so that's really interesting to know that it wasn't until college that you got sort of like hip to how to do all of that. And that there was also a sort of not intellectual is not quite the right word, but you know, instructional thing where you like did study music theory and you're like, oh, these are the notes that are in G. So if I'm soloing over G, I should probably hang out with this triad.
Yeah.
So how did that? I'm trying to think about this. How did you practice that? I guess is what I want to know in college. Just like hanging out with other pickers and just in picking parties. I sort of want to picture what it was like to be you at 20 at Berklee, trying to figure out how to improv and like doing the actual work.
The thing that like unlocked improv for me was basing it off of melodies I already knew, and using these melodies that I could keep in my head and starting to make subtle changes to them in the moment. Learning how to make rhythmic changes was like the first thing. Like, could I hold this note out slightly longer and then compensate in the next bar? And like, how can I make deliberate changes in the moment and keep the form in the form by which I mean the melody in my head? And then I would start to try to make little melody changes. But that was kind of how I came at it, because when someone would be like, oh, it's 4 bars of G and then 2 bars of C and 2 bars of D, that would mean nothing to me. Like I wouldn't be able to figure out how to like do anything with that.
You had to hear the melody first.
Yeah, just because I'd come from this melody background. So that was, and you know, I would just like make these lists of like, I'd make lists of everything I was the worst at. And that's where I would start. I'd be like, okay, I'm the worst at playing in these keys. I'm the worst at improvising on these types of things. Speed is an issue, blah, 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 you know, and I would try to raise the level of the things I was the worst at. And that was sort of like my approach.
That's a really powerful insight and interesting and a little vulnerable. And I appreciate that. And do you think there's something about your personality that attacks challenges in sort of a linear way, or I would almost say like cerebral way? Because not everybody would like make a list of all the things they're not good at and try to see what, you know, they should attack first.
Right. And I feel like maybe it's also just because I was coming at it in that college environment. I wasn't like a 10-year-old kid learning how to improvise. I'm sure a 10-year-old kid would learn it in a very different way, you know, maybe in a more natural, like, you know, they don't need to be making lists. But I was like already an adult, and I felt like I was like trying to make up for time. I was trying to get on the same level as people who had been playing bluegrass and improvising since they were kids. So it was just whatever made sense to me.
What was a good breakout moment for you when, you know, in college or outside of college, when you went out there and you're like, okay, I think I'm going to try to do this, that made you feel like, okay, maybe I can do this?
Gosh, I'm trying to think of like one moment in particular.
A moment, you know, yeah. I mean, if there's just something that stands out where you're like, oh, okay, I got that gig, or
you know, I feel like there were some jams that I would go to. I would be trying to jam every chance I got. I would go to IBMA, the International Bluegrass Music Association yearly conference, and I would go to jams. And at the beginning, when I would go to these jams, I always felt like I had to apologize or like explain. I'd be like, oh, I'm actually just like an Irish fiddler, but like I'm learning bluegrass or whatever. I'd have to like, and I would do that. And I remember at one point, like someone would just be like, oh, I wouldn't have known. And I was like, oh, maybe I need to stop like saying that, you know, maybe I don't need to like
apologize in advance.
Yeah.
That super interesting. And it makes me just, I'm not going to like keep on this improv thing. I don't know. I just have one more question about it, which is that now when you're playing live, maybe it's a high pressure environment or maybe it's not. Do you have kind of set pieces? Will you play like your killer solo that you can count on, like note for note, just about in certain situations? Or are you always kind of playing around the melody?
I'm always kind of playing around at this point, and I have gone through phases of trying to play the killer solo I've worked out, but what I ended up finding was that sometimes in the moment, that thing that I thought was so great felt horrible to play, and I'd be trying to struggle through this thing that I knew. Forcing it, and it just, my body didn't want to do it that day, and it would actually turn out way worse than if I had just played something else. So I think I'm at the point now where it's like, it's going to be better if I just kind of make it up. Not to say that there's not things that I would tend to go for in certain situations consistently, but it's better if there's always like, I'm a little bit loose about it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty healthy approach to music in general.
Yeah.
If you're just like trying to ram your idea through whatever context you're in, it might not have the best result every time. Let's talk about your solo career now. And this is what my first thought of finding a way into this is to get at what the difference is between being in a band, somebody else's band, in this case, Molly Tuttle's band, Golden Highway, and now your own project. What I want to know is like, what's good about being in somebody else's band, and what's hard, and what's great? What's the trade-off? Because there absolutely is one.
Oh, totally. It's great being in someone else's band. Like, there's so much less work. It's like, it's almost like a day job. Like, you can leave it when you get home. You don't have to do any work. And, and you just, the only work you have to do is on the road. And really, you don't have to do much work on the road. You
just have to show up on time.
You just hang out. You just have to be at sound check and at the gig and like do a good job on your instrument. And it's awesome. I had so much fun in the last couple of years. It was kind of like living a dream. And I'd never done that because I like kind of ran a sort of democratic band before that. I was sort of in this like project where all 5 people had equal say, which was its own thing before that. So to be a full side person with Molly was really cool. But then the trade-off is, I guess at a certain point, well, it was been really inspiring to see her lead a band, and and then you're not playing your own music, and almost I felt like it's like I wanted to be more challenged in terms of having to come up with music. Like it almost got too easy.
Sure.
I don't know.
I had a friend who played not a stringed instrument. He played. He's a session keyboard player here in town. He does other things now, but there was a time when he was like A-list guy, and so he's getting tapped for gigs. But as a session player, every day is different, and he found in hindsight of this experience that he rather liked that because it was a kind of a high profile gig. It was like 5 days in the UK, and he said the first day he was like nobody really rehearsed. And it was a big show, big crowd. And he was just like kind of holding on for dear life. Like, oh my God, I was trying to keep it together, And then the second day he was like, oh, I got this. And the third day he was just like, oh my God, when is this going to be over? Because it was just that same thing. So I totally, I get what you're saying.
Well, and I think also like just being a creative person, I think we all musicians have this drive to produce and create in different ways. And, I think I've just been starting to feel that urge more recently.
Well, you have more ownership over your own songs.
Exactly.
Obviously is the first thing. There's just more of you in your music if you're writing the material yourself.
For sure.
I know this one, and as a guy that's written a whole bunch of songs and performed all of them, because nobody will cover them. No, I'm just kidding. Molly covered one, actually. Yeah. Thanks, Molly. But she wrote half of it, so that's fair. I will learn covers for things, maybe a special event or something, or a reason, or somebody's birthday, or a hero's birthday. I want to play it, and I forget it almost immediately because they just sort of. This is probably an insight into my character flaws, but like it just doesn't mean as much as the thing that came out of my head and heart that I wanted to say. I know almost every one of those songs, even the ones that I wrote 20 years ago, because they're just like the relationship to the music is so immediate, and deep.
Yeah.
So I can totally understand.
The other thing that's just interesting is like being a bluegrass fiddler. Like so much of my identity has been just being a bluegrass fiddler up until sort of recently. And that, like a big part of that is playing backup over a whole song. Like I idolize the way Bobby Hicks and Vassar Clements play the backup through a whole song and back up a singer. And that's something I've studied for like years. So to get to do that in Molly's band has been so amazing. And that's something, if I lead a band, I can't do that. I have to sacrifice that. I have to be like, well, I'm not going to have fiddle backup on this whole song. I can't do it to myself. You know, it's like, so I have to like be okay with having a different role as a musician. I have to be like, okay, now I'm the singer and the lead fiddle player, but you know,
but that's
so it's
it.
like,
That's where the
yeah, so it's like,
responsibility
that's really a trade-off.
It's interesting that you, I wouldn't have thought somebody, and I'm a fan of the music, I wouldn't have realized that the fiddler who's like between breaks or solos is really like working on the craft of backing up the singer.
Yeah.
And not just like dragging along and then putting a little fill where it needs to be.
Yeah.
God, I'm embarrassed that I even said that out loud. Jeez, what a freaking Philistine. Well, I think that you brought your fiddle with you.
I did.
And I wonder if you would play one.
Oh,
for
sure.
us. Do you want to set it up? Or?
Yeah. Maybe we'll do one for my new album.
I love it. Is there anything you'd like to say about it in advance or to set it up?
Yeah, it's a Peter Rowan song called Angel Island, and it's kind of like an immigration story on the West Coast. And I've always been kind of fascinated with immigration stories. My grandparents were immigrants from Ireland, and I sort of grew up with this family lore of their crazy journey. It would take about 2 weeks. They were dodging German U-boats and zigzagging across the Atlantic, and
wow,
it's a crazy story. But anyways, I've always been fascinated by immigration stories. So
let's hear it.
Paper Bride came all the way from China, Golden Gate, San Francisco Bay. Spent a lifetime on the Angel Island, waiting for her one day. There's a fortune on the Golden Mountain, staking claim in the fall. He left his bride on the Angel Island. She wrote these words upon the wall. One more lifetime. One more lifetime. One more lifetime, loving you, working the gold fields on the high Sierras. The early snow began to fall. Buried treasure for his darling under redwood trees so tall. Snowed in all winter on the Golden Mountain. He returned in the spring. His bride was gone from the Angel Island. No one knew where, no one knew where. One more lifetime. One more lifetime. One more lifetime, loving you. Now he lives a life like a Chinese painting. Shadows wash against the sky. The empty brush strokes for his darling. They never said their last goodbye.
Well, that was fantastic. Thank you both.
Oh, thanks.
And I was thinking while you guys were playing about Peter Rowan, his music, and the role that sort of West Coast bluegrass played in my own journey. I had a bluegrass band when I first started, like out of college, and there was a time that I spent in Appalachia, going to a bunch of bluegrass festivals in Appalachia and in the South, just to kind of absorb it that way. Because I grew up in Idaho in a small town, and my parents weren't terribly musical, but I, for whatever reason, was, and I was really interested in it. Anyway, when I got really excited about bluegrass, the first thing that I think I heard was "Old and in the Way," Grisman and Jerry Garcia, and it was kind of that scene that like grabbed me. And this is just like maybe a philosophical question, but I just feel like the bluegrass of the West Coast, at least in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, just comes from a different spiritual energy than the bluegrass of Appalachia and South and Nashville. Do you think there's anything to that, or am I just making stuff up?
I think you're right. It definitely has a different energy.
To me, it's more, it's a little less reverent and more playful in a sense, but I think the trade-off is that it's like a little bit apart, divorced from the tradition, which is what bluegrass kind of is so meaningful in a way, to be part of a tradition that precedes you. I don't know if you ever think about that, but I think it's an attraction for people that listen to the music a lot, but like the West Coast guys, they're just kind of stony guys that like to pick, no offense, Sam or anybody else. I was one of those guys. But with that is just like, it's just music, and sometimes I think that the Southern school, for want of a better way of putting it, gets a little stuffy with what bluegrass is or isn't. And I can say all this stuff because I'm not looking for gigs at y'all's festivals. So there's just some outside commentary.
No, I think you're onto something there. I think sometimes in bluegrass, people are so obsessed with what is and isn't bluegrass that they might be missing the bigger picture sometimes of like, I don't know, what is it good? First of all, is it not good? Is this good music? And I think bluegrass, the argument always is that, well, bluegrass was built on innovation. Like the guy who started bluegrass, Bill Monroe, always had different instruments in his band that nowadays no one would consider bluegrass instruments, like the accordion. Yeah. Osborne Brothers had drums, blah, blah, blah. So like, there has always been innovation. Newgrass Revival had electric bass.
John Cowan, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
But there is a tension between it, and I think about this a lot. Like I love me a 5-piece bluegrass band. I mean, just leave the dobro in the trunk. I don't. I'm just kidding. I love dobro. I'm totally joking. But you know what I mean? Just like that straight up, just 5 like ripping bluegrass band, like tight harmonies, 3-part harmonies. Like give it to me all night long. I love it. But I also noticed that like a little goes a long way too. It's hard to like hang for a whole concert with just like that kind of hard drive and bluegrass. And it's nice to have a little bit of variety. And also there's just like so much music in the world. That's one of the things I loved about the Grisman Quartet. It was just so like out there, and like the Tony Rice Manzanita record. It's like, I still just want to hear Tony rip, but I really love that music a lot for just like it pushing what is and isn't bluegrass music.
Totally.
I also think that just there's just any music that has a tradition, there's always going to be a tension between the honoring the tradition and some kind of implied boundary at which point the music is no longer can really be said to be part of that tradition. And that's just a really, an arguable point. And I think that's to its credit that music will always sort of have that. I think. In saying all of that, do you have a feeling about where your music kind of falls right now? Because you're young and you'll evolve and whatever, try different things. But right now, where do you think you fall in that kind of tradition versus outside the box?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah. And I feel like it's sort of like changes all the time. I feel like honestly, my definition of bluegrass right now is that any song I play, if if the bluegrass instruments are involved, it's bluegrass to me. And I like so many different styles of music, and I like good songs, and I just kind of, I don't know, right now I've just been focusing on trying to like find the best material, write the best material, find the best covers I can, and play them with a 5-piece bluegrass band, and not be too tied down to, you know, like try to experiment with different grooves and different feels, you know, and like let pop and rock music like influence us in that way, you know, and to me it's all still bluegrass if those instruments are there. And, you know, maybe at some point some of those instruments won't be there, or there'll be other instruments also, and I don't know if at that point we, you know, I don't know where the line is, or if that'll keep changing in my mind, and it's different in everyone's mind, right? So
yeah,
like,
it totally will keep changing. And then as I hear you talk about it, I'm just like, God, what's up with all these stuffy labels anyway? Like, who cares? Like, is it your, you know, do you like it? Do you not like it? As the listener or the not listener, it's just, that all said, I kind of find the debate interesting.
Totally.
I was a guy that, like, I used to love real clean picking, like Chris Thile style, just like that virtuosic picking, and I still do, obviously. But as I listen to the music more and more, and like Bill Monroe more, when I first heard Bill Monroe, I'm like, this is the father of bluegrass. He needs to practice. I'm saying some effed up shit right now. But like as time went on, I'm just like, oh my God, the way he plays bluegrass mandolin, and like Compton, you know, Mike Compton is in that, like, so in that school, and I feel like that is so hard to do, and in some ways harder to do, that style of kind of thwacky pick. I don't know the words. Thwacky is not the right word. It sounds mean, but it's just such a unique approach. Anyway, my own taste, you know, evolved, and it's just like bluegrass is a really rich tradition, and maybe a picker's music at the end of the day, you know. Like,
I feel like I had to work backwards to appreciate the oldest stuff, you know, like kind of like what you said. It's like I started out being drawn to Alison Krauss, Union Station, and the Del McCurry Band, and like the cleanest, you know, Punch Brothers and stuff. And then somebody be like, well, you should really check out Bobby Hicks. And then, oh, you should really check out Curly Ray Klein. And, you know, it goes further back. And then once I started hearing, oh, well, you know, Stuart Duncan is really playing, you know, he's not making up this lick. He's quoting this Curly Ray Klein lick from this one record. You know, it kind of like, it's like, oh man, okay. That's, so if my modern day hero is listening to somebody else and that's his hero, like, I better check out this person. And you can hear it with different ears. And
we're all standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, all the great people. I think we have a little bit of time, but is it cool if you mentioned sort of in our conversations before some of your influences, and I thought it'd be an interesting try. I haven't done this ever on the podcast, but to get your reaction to a couple of like videos that we might watch. Yeah, totally. So I have this queued up. Obviously this is Vassar Clements. Oh, late great John Hartford behind him.
Yeah.
And I think that it's set right before his solo comes, just in the interest of time. But yeah, we'll let it rip. Man, so what do you like about Vassar's playing?
I've spent a lot of time with that video in particular, actually, for sure. I've learned that solo, and man,
really?
He's amazing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, he's got his own unique fiddle vocabulary, which is not easy to do, and not a lot of people have that. And
and there's like this kind of swagger in his playing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's so much confidence, and just like almost like angry confidence in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Although it sounded like I never met him, but it sounded like he was like the nicest dude, like
really?
Very, very chill. But yeah, and like the way his left hand just like glides around, it just looks like he has no boundaries.
Totally. Yeah, it's very relaxed too. Like like the conservation of motion. This is me. I shouldn't even comment about it.
No,
just
for
from
sure.
The outside.
Yeah.
Let's watch I think this is Stuart Duncan here. Yes. And you can talk over the videos too.
Cool.
You know, like whatever you want to say.
Sweet. Stuart and Russ Carson. The gold standard right there. Yeah.
If
perfect.
Yeah, if you could put like, what is it about Stuart Duncan's playing that is uniquely Stuart Duncan?
Oh man, he just plays the perfect thing at all times. I mean, but seriously, it's like he just has endless vocabulary to dwell from. Draw from. Like he knows it all. He knows all the greats, everything. It seems like, and he has his own sound from it all, and he is endlessly tasteful, and I could go on and on. I'm
totally
he's just the best.
He's also just somebody that his career is probably in his fourth decade now, maybe you could say. I mean, he's just been great since he was young, and he's also been like a Nashville player throughout his career, which is its own obstacle course to navigate of different musical situations and everything. And so there probably isn't a more well-rounded fiddler. You might be able to make that argument than Stuart Duncan.
Definitely. Yeah.
He also lives. There was a church I was going to down at the end of the block for a while, and I think he was a regular church member at that place. So I would see him play in church and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow, bluegrass. Wow. I would be like, do you guys know who's playing?
Yeah, you guys appreciating this?
There's this one time I was at a Kinko's. Sorry, Jared. I just have to riff on this for just 1 second. I was at the Kinko's in Green Hills, and Edgar Meyer walked up and was making copies of like one of his compositions just like 10 years ago, and he was like, and I was just so starstruck. But it's just Edgar Meyer at the Kinko's, and I like love him. Like he's one of my favoriteest people in the world, musically wise. Just like the chops and the innovation, and then the composition on top of it. And he's kind of a serious composer. Yeah. So I was such were my feelings that I had to say something to somebody. And so the guy that was helping me out at the Kinko's, I was like, that is one of the world's greatest bass players, and also a world-renowned composer, just like right there. And the kid was just like, it'll be 450. It's just utterly just like, what? Get this guy out of here.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, okay. Enough about that. Oh, Michael Cleveland.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Wow.
Keeps his bow tight.
Yeah.
His bow fiddle strings.
His band plays about the fastest I've ever heard any bluegrass band play.
That is.
I swear I've clocked them at like 200 before
That's
at
insane.
festivals.
Yeah, that is just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost impossible to combat that speed.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how long this video is, but oftentimes he'll play this tune for, like 7 or 8 minutes. It's very long, and like,
and that band's like,
yeah, so like to be able to play that fast for that long, like.
I mean, that man burns with a unique flame.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, that's rock and roll fiddle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. There's a reason he's, like, always going viral on TikTok.
Yeah, totally.
And he's got all these viral,
I know.
YouTube videos. It's just shockingly good.
Yes. I mean, this is Lee Highway Blues, I think.
Yeah.
It's just like, it just kind of shuts it down. It's like, you can't play that song now.
Yeah, exactly. That's like, it's been played.
It's been played. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, man. We might as well move on just in the interest of time. Oh, did I give you? I don't think I gave you that last ACUS.
Oh yeah, that would be good.
Can you just cue up? Is there an Alison Krauss fiddle one?
What would be? Oh.
Choctaw Hayride is what I was thinking of, but.
Totally. Perfect.
You'll have to find it.
Very much. We are so glad.
It's like 2/3 of the way through. She really doesn't play like a ton of, she's so good at it.
She is so good.
Nice.
She's just got a certain tone that's like very unique in attack. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's not like a super notey approach, but it's like
But she's got
the tone.
yeah,
and
the
heart.
tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Totally.
yeah, has been very inspiring. Just kind of my whole life hearing her.
I think that might be it. That's all we got. That's maybe
Yeah.
okay. So it seems like you're really busy on tour these days. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Between Molly's band and now your own tour is coming up.
Yep.
And you have a bunch of dates in May already.
Yeah, and the rest of the year is gonna kind of take off with a bunch of.
Are you
dates.
handling your own booking for the most part, or do you?
I've got a booking agent,
Help-
thankfully.
super
Yeah.
helpful. Who are you taking out on the road with you? When you go?
It's kind of a rotating cast this year.
Yeah.
Just while I kind of like find my band and just get everything organized. But thankfully we're in Nashville, so there's so many great players.
Somebody always there.
Yeah.
Get on the bus with you,
Yeah.
or van, or hatchback. Who knows?
On the bicycle. No, just kidding.
One last curiosity about maybe what you've learned, because I feel like of artists I've seen, you're absolutely like playing the game in terms of like, out there hustling, you're posting, you're creating content for people, and just like that's a really important part of every artist's professional life. And I'm just curious what your relationship is to that. Do you like doing it? And maybe that's enough of a question.
Yeah, with the social media stuff.
Yeah, in particular. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I mean, I like doing it sometimes, but and it's kind of been amazing how I can connect with people, and I really started putting serious effort into it during the pandemic because I had so much free time on my hands, and we were all kind of lonely at that time, so it was like seemed like an extra powerful way at that time to, it was kind of my only social outlet for a little while. And so it's been really cool to actually start be playing gigs on my own now. And I'll show up to these towns I've never been to before, and there's 150 people there, and they're like, well, we saw you on Instagram, or we heard you on Spotify, or we watched your YouTube live stream. And it's like, it's an amazing.
It works.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really like, it's crazy. But it can be a lot of work, and it's hard to draw the line sometimes between like real life or content creating. It's like sometimes I hate to take myself out of the moment by starting
Pulling
to
your
film
phone out,
something.
yeah.
And I'm like, I just want to just be in this moment and not like try to create the moment for somebody else.
Sure.
So it's kind of like a balancing act.
Yeah, and then how, maybe just as like a parlay into that, how do you have a decent sense of a work-life balance, do you think, or do you struggle with like not just constantly thinking about it and going all the time?
Yeah, I struggle with it. Like there's so many evenings that I'm just, I just feel like I work until I go to bed, and then I wake up and do it again. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. I am, even from my position in the world of music and stuff, is I think that it's a real challenge for anybody who's got a dream and the guts to act on it, to know how to sometimes not act on it.
Right.
And just like and just live.
Right, because it's like you're doing what you love, or you're trying to make this thing that you love a reality, and like so that's like a really powerful thing. Of course, you're gonna want to work on it nonstop, but yeah, it's hard to. You also don't want to get burned out, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, from where I am, it seems like you're doing a really great job, and I just feel excited for you to be on the precipice of this sort of new chapter into the unknown.
Thank you.
And there's just nothing better as an artist than voyaging into the unknown. So I'll be watching, and I'll be at a show here soon enough, and I hope that I get to see you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bronwyn.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go ahead and click here to like and subscribe. You can click right there to watch another video, or click here to watch a playlist featuring songs of the Morse Code Podcast. Okay, thank you very much.